the biggest thing that we're going to deal with right now is the new Star Wars trilogy that was announced. And guys, this is like just when you thought Lucasfilm couldn't get any dumber, like they announced this. So Simon Kinberg has been officially announced to write and produce a brand new Star Wars movie trilogy for Lucasfilm. And I mean, okay, just to give you guys some context, Simon Kinberg, he is responsible for the worst X-Men movie ever made. And that's saying a lot because Brett Ratner made an X-Men movie. But he made Dark Phoenix. And number two, Mr. Butters. This is the man who is the showrunner, creator, and lead writer of one of our favorite Apple TV shows, Invasion. A movie about an alien invasion where you never get to see the invasion. It's just about stupid people living their lives.
It's a fantastic show, Matthew. How dare you talk crap about it?
Yes, yeah.
Incredible.
But this guy...
That's the one with the little kids and they go find their dad's sex dungeon, right?
Yeah.
In the secret apartment in Paris. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they walk the tunnel in a couple hours.
With the Wajo buttholes floating in the air that they all go through to transport places. And
there's literally an alien butthole that they use to teleport. So
you can swim and they swim through space. The one lady gets
he was also a co-writer on Fanforstic as well.
Yes. His resume is...
he wrote the same story twice for X-Men. Never forget that.
His resume is full of really shitty movies that he's been involved in. And so, of course, Kathleen Kennedy decides to hire him to shepherd in the new phase of Star Wars. And I want to point out this article from our friends at That Park Place, which if you guys aren't checking out That Park Place regularly, you really need to, because they are very good journalism over there. But there's a lot of rumors circulating about what exactly Kathleen Kennedy is going to be tapping into Simon Kinberg to do. And so the only thing that we really know for certain is that he has been commissioned to write a Star Wars trilogy of movies. Now, there's some speculation out there that he's going to be doing episodes 10 through 12 of the Skywalker saga. And the rumor is that Daisy Ridley's Rey character is going to be present in that, in the form of like a mentorship character, very similar to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, that has some impact in and of itself. However, in the Hollywood Reporter article, and by the way, links to all this stuff is in the description. So if you guys want to do your own research, you can check out our links there. In the Hollywood Reporter article, they said that this is those rumors are not true. It's going to be a brand new trilogy. It's going to be something completely original with new characters, introducing like a new conflict and all this other stuff. So we don't really know what exactly the plan here is, but we do know that Star Wars has a long history of announcing shit that doesn't go anywhere. And it also puts the Rey movie up in kind of like flux, because basically Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, like she was really big on like writing like the new Jedi Order movie starring Rey. It's going to be a new Rey movie. But if the rumors about this trilogy are true, then it's like, okay, well, what's happening with this movie now? Is Charmin going to be the one directing Simon Kinberg's trilogy, and so on and so forth? But the big thing here that Park Place reports on is that this is going to be Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger's final stab at Star Wars before they both, quote unquote, retire. Now, I'll believe it when I see it. But, there was all those rumors about Indiana Jones 5 going to be the thing that Kathleen Kennedy retires on. But now she wants to go out on top because that was a huge failure. She wants to try to go out on a high and kind of like set the trajectory of Star Wars for the foreseeable future before she leaves. Also, guys, Simon Kinberg was the quote-unquote consultant on The Force Awakens. And so, like, you can thank a lot of The Force Awakens decisions on that. It wasn't just J.J. Abrams, it was J.J. Abrams and apparently Simon Kinberg. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in the article, they also mentioned that Simon Kinberg has been hired by Paramount to oversee the new Star Trek movie series. So first of all, I want to start with you, Mr. Butt.
Mr. Butt, okay.
Mr. Butt. So what do you think about the idea of hiring the genius behind one of the worst Apple TV science fiction shows ever made to shepherd Star Wars into the new era?
Well, I'm not one of these guys that looks at everybody's resume whenever somebody gets talked about on the internet, but when I found out, when you told me that this is the same guy that made the Invasion show, my eyes could not have rolled any further back into my head. It's incredible. And honestly, it's not a surprise to me at all that Kathleen Kennedy and the powers that be over there chose this guy. I mean, I guess he has done some previous Star Wars work with like Rebels and some stuff with Filoni and them. But so I guess he has a little bit of Star Wars history. But still, man, this guy, there's not a lot there that I like, to be perfectly honest with you. But honestly, to me, it's just more nonsense. I mean, they've announced what, half a dozen things that are currently in development right now, and how many things that they have announced in the past have never come to fruition. So just like anything that comes out of Lucasfilm and from Kathleen Kennedy, I will believe it when I actually see it in front of me on a movie theater screen. So until that time happens, this is just more nonsense out there in the wind, trying to like impress people, trying to impress shareholders and investors and stuff. And hey, we've got stuff going on. We're working on things, So that's it. That's what it is. I think it's just bluster and hot air and bullshit. So,
well, Odin, there's been a big hiatus of Star Wars from the movie theaters ever since the failure that was, Rise of Skywalker. After Solo, Bob Iger basically said, okay, we're going to step back from churning out Star Wars movies. We're going to focus on TV for a while. And of course, now the TV's in the shitter too, because, of the Acolyte and all that stuff. And we've got Skeleton Crew coming out on December 2nd. So that's just around the corner. But that's really like the last big Star Wars thing that it looks like we can expect anytime soon. And Kathleen Kennedy has announced a bajillion different Star Wars projects, and none of them look like they're coming to fruition at this point. And so announcing another one who's, it's a trilogy. Rian Johnson still hasn't even completed his trilogy, even though it's never been announced that it's been canceled. So the question now becomes, it's like, is this basically their renewed focus on really getting stuff back in the theaters? And will Simon Kinberg succeed where so many others have failed?
To the first point, I would just say it sounds like more just hot air being blown from their asses, basically. I mean, this honestly, as soon as I heard this news, I couldn't help but laugh, because I'm like, wait, another trilogy? Wait, another announcement? You're going to make another announcement about more movies when the other films you've already announced haven't even been made or started production or gotten anywhere close to being seemingly greenlit in any way? It becomes just so farcical at that point. So do I think it's going to see the light of day, or that's going to happen? I have a lot of doubts, just because this has been the nature of Lucasfilm, is they have all of these ideas, apparently, when their ideas themselves are not very good ones. And it's not even ideas that they have. It's like basic concepts of, okay, we need to have a Star Wars movie out in theaters. That's the idea. All right, guys, we need a Star Wars movie out there. Okay, who's a good writer? Who's a good director? Okay, let's go ahead and choose those people, and then just say, yeah, we have a Star Wars film coming out. And it's like, that's where they start. It's like, okay, well, what's the story going to be about? Do you have an actual mission for this story? Is it going to push any further narrative that you can then spin off from in the future, especially since this is an IP that they want to obviously, use as a franchise, and they've abysmally dropped that ball in so many different ways. So I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's just nonsensical what they're doing. Now, as far as Kinberg, I gotta give the dude some credit, because yes, he's got mostly terrible movies to his name. Okay, this is the guy who wrote XXX State of the Union, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, X-Men: The Last Stand. He also wrote Jumper, of which was his first producer credit as well. That was a fun film back in the day.
It was
Great
fun.
film. I actually enjoy it, but it's not a good movie.
It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie.
But I enjoy it.
Right.
But then he did Sherlock Holmes. And it was like, ooh, okay, he did the first Sherlock Holmes film. That was a fun movie. I thought that one's pretty cleverly written too. And from there, he kind of just was kind of meandering a bit. I think his best performance of this work was X-Men: Days of Future Past, which he was the sole screenplay writer for. And I thought that was a phenomenal movie too. But then right after that, his next writing gig was Fan 4 Stick. And one could argue, okay, studio interference, a lot of chaos going on with the director and everything like that. Maybe that could have impacted it. I doubt it, but you could at least give that. But then after that, it was X-Men Apocalypse, and then Dark Phoenix. And then he did that boomy. I forgot this movie existed. This is how poorly it did. Y'all remember the 355?
Yeah.
that came out back in
Oh, yeah.
2022 with like
Yeah,
the
the woman
all
spy
female,
thing.
all female spy.
It was
group.
basically Fox Force 5 from Pulp Fiction.
Yep. I remember covering it only because I was like, wow, that movie didn't do anything. It made $27 million at the box office.
Yeah, that was a very terrible film.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted it. And
Yeah.
and
I will never not remind people that this is the guy who ruined Dark Phoenix twice.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
twice.
again, I don't have a lot of high hopes for him. And then his most recent movie was The Killer's Game, which nobody also saw. And that was the one with Batista in the starring role, because people are still trying to make Batista a thing. I don't think that he's the guy that's going to turn things around, because yes, he's got a couple of good films to his name, but the vast majority are terrible. And we've all seen even good writers, if as soon as they get put under the Lucasfilm umbrella, they automatically turn to crap.
Well, also to choose him to kind of like oversee a trilogy of movies, like me and Mr. Butters here painstakingly watched 2 full seasons of his Apple TV show Invasion, and that's the show where he had the most creative control ever given to a fucking showrunner. It's like Apple didn't tell him what to write, how to write, what to do, whatever. They just gave him money and said go to town. And so that's like the purest form of Kinberg is the show Invasion, and it is one of the worst things you will ever watch. Not because it's necessarily bad, but because it's so insanely boring. It is the most boring show I think I've ever watched.
But it's very diverse. It's very diverse and inclusive.
Oh, it's very very diverse and inclusive. And if you ever want to watch a show about alien invasions that has no aliens in it, that's the show to watch. So I want to throw this to Brian real quick.
Hey.
Brian. So Simon Kinberg, he's pulling a J.J. Abrams, where in addition to overseeing Star Wars, he's also overseeing Paramount's new cinematic endeavor into Star Trek. And so basically he's kind of like got, in the article, they said one hand on a lightsaber and the other hand on the Starship Enterprise. And this idea that both Paramount and Disney have hired probably one of the most inconsistently bad writers ever to oversee their 2 biggest science fiction franchises is kind of interesting to me, especially because you and Shane have recently had an experience with Terry Matalas again.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you want to talk about that, but what's your take on this guy not only overseeing the new Star Wars trilogy, but also possibly overseeing the new Star Trek movies?
I mean, I'll wait to pass judgment until I see it. But it doesn't ever work out. The 2 franchises are so different. I know they both have Star in the title, but Star Wars really isn't science fiction. It's like fantasy that just happens to be set in a sort of science fiction. I don't even know if it's the future or galaxy or whatever.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Brian.
So it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away with lightsabers and wizards, and it's space wizards. And so while people categorize it as science fiction, it really isn't science fiction, because science fiction has some kind of like basis in reality. Star Wars is as far from reality as it gets. So I've always considered it as fantasy. And Star Trek really is science fiction. It's supposed to be set in the future, the same future we are in right now. It's supposed to worry about the laws of physics, and it has the same rules our universe has. There's no force. There's no.
Is it, Brian? Is it our future or one of the alternate timey-wimey?
I don't know. You're asking me a question I don't have the answer to. I believe
that's my job, Mr. Bud.
Okay, sorry.
There are 3 timelines in Star Trek, but regardless, the timeline that we all care about is the original timeline, where it comes from our future, right? Or a version of our future. It's sort of split off somewhere in the 80s. But whatever it is, it's supposed to be our future. It's supposed to follow our universe's laws and how things work. That's why it's called science fiction. So you doing a science fiction franchise and doing a fantasy franchise are 2 separate things, regardless of whether or not they happen to both have Star in the title. So who knows? It would be interesting to look at it and go, hey, you know what? His Star Wars movie was pretty good. His Star Trek movie sucked, or vice versa. Then you can really tell what this guy's capable of. We talked about Jumper earlier. Jumper is not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. And it has a science fiction-esque.
It's also based on a book series, so it's still not an original property.
That's true, but it's a little more science fiction. So I'm thinking if he's going to do I think he'll be better at Star Trek than he will at Star Wars. I think Star Wars is a harder. It's funny because like Star Trek should be the harder franchise because you have to pay attention to a lot more canon and stuff. But I think Star Wars is harder because you have to please a lot more people, and you can't just follow canon and be good enough. It's a hard thing to do. Star Trek is hard. And so I think that he'll probably be better at one or the other, but I don't think he'll be good at both. And he probably won't be good at either, to be fair.
Yeah, probably. But I just want to take this moment to publicly shame Terry Matalas. Shame on you, sir.
Oh,
because he used the fan base to get what he wanted, and now that he doesn't need us anymore, he's blocking numbers. He
blocked my number. He blocked Shane's number. He unfollowed us. The election, we lost a lot of our good friends in the Star Trek.
That's
Hollywood
small dick
realm.
energy.
That's small dick energy. Look, I still love Terry Matalas. I think what he did with Picard season 3 was great. And I think 12 Monkeys is a masterpiece. So I believe in the guy's creative ability, but I think that if his newfound ideology starts to make it into his creative endeavors, then he's gonna fail just like other creatives before him have. One reason he was so good was because he wasn't political. He didn't worry about that. He worried about the story. And now that he's it seems like, at least personally, he's cutting ties because, we're Trump supporters and stuff like that.
I look at Terry as like an opportunist, and he's very savvy when it comes to studio politics.
I'm not surprised. I heard from a lot of people, and I didn't say shit when you guys were talking to him.
Mhm.
I've heard from a lot of people he's a piece of shit, but that's just me.
Look, when I was sitting in his kitchen eating pizza, talking about the world politics and stuff, he wasn't a piece of shit. He was
what I will say.
Well, he'll tell you what you want to hear because he's a salesman. That's what all these producers and creatives are.
As an outsider, all I will say is I think what his actions recently have shown is that he cannot be trusted. And I think that's both creatively and personally. And so I think that's really where we are at this point with him.
I will say that now that he's in the Marvel camp, and because he's doing the Vision show, and you had the Avengers come out unanimously in favor of Kamala Harris, and that these guys are suffering from TDS majorly. I think a lot of this is probably just to protect his own career, cover his own ass when it comes to working with these actors in the Marvel universe, essentially. So I don't think it's malicious necessarily, but I do think that it's very opportunistic.
Brian, I spent a lot of time with the guy. I spent a lot of time with the guy. We talked about a lot of stuff, and he was in that year I spent with him.
He's no good. You can't trust him.
He wasn't an asshole.
No good.
He was a really genuine guy at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Maybe he was just selling me the whole time.
He couldn't have been, or he'd still be here, motherfucker. That's the point.
What I'm saying is, I don't know. Maybe he just gave into the brain rot that is in Hollywood. I don't know. But I spent a lot of time with the guy, and either he was selling me and he's a great salesman the entire time, or he's just changed his opinions because he's sitting in like a cesspool of political nonsense.
I just want you guys to be a little bit.
Go ahead.
I just want you guys to be a little bit more, considerate here. They don't like small dick energy. It's micro penis energy. You need to be kinder.
Micro penis.
I apologize.
That's true.
With the XY.
Don't be
chromosome.
ableist,
That was
guys.
almost a microaggression at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's a real medical challenge for a lot of people. I understand.
Just you, Brian. That's it.
Brian, I know you guys are.
Listen, this is why I can't go full trans, bro. My penis is just too big. I can't tuck it. I can't tuck it.
Brian, you guys are pretty close with Todd Stashwick. Is he?
Yeah,
weird.
We spent a lot of time with Todd. Todd hasn't blocked us. That's good. He hasn't taken my call in a long time. I'm gonna be honest, but he hasn't blocked us. He's been pretty cordial. I don't know what's going on with Todd. Todd's always been a little bit of a crunchy liberal, to be honest.
No, he has. Yeah, I was just curious.
And when we were hanging out with him, he wasn't shy about his opinions, but he also didn't disrespect ours. Like, we were able to be friends even if we didn't agree on certain things.
All right, cool.
I think he might be a little more of an evolved liberal, where where he's going to share his opinions, and I don't think he's going to shut people out because he doesn't agree with them. I think Terry definitely did. So.
Getting back to Star Wars, though, I want to throw this to Culture. So, Culture, here is a list of all the upcoming Star Wars films. So we have Simon Kinberg Star Wars Trilogy, The Mandalorian and Grogu, terrible title, by the way. The New Jedi Order, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie, Lando, which could be a movie, could be a TV show.
Actually,
and also can be a porn.
Yeah,
we wouldn't know.
Didn't Donald Glover already say that's dead?
Yeah, but like they keep saying that it's on the slate. Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie, Taika Waititi's movie, which I had heard
also
had
he said
gotten
he was
canceled.
dead.
Yeah, but that's still on there. Sean Levy's Star Wars movie, which we've heard like zero about.
It just got talked about because he had a successful Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, we got Rogue Squadron, which was canceled. Now apparently it's back.
No.
Then Ryan Johnson's Star Wars trilogy.
Also no.
That last one is not going to happen.
And there's conflicting reports on this one, and I think you kind of touched upon this, on whether or not this is the Daisy Ridley project that's being replaced, or it's completely different. Because you have all sorts of people going at it about this whole thing.
I want Culture's take on this. Culture, why do you think Lucasfilm, I mean, it's almost a joke at this point, why do you think they have such a hard time announcing Star Wars stuff that actually gets made?
Well, it's a company-wide problem. It's not just Lucasfilm. It's everything. They announce an awful lot of things that don't get done. Disney's notorious for that, down to their theme park division. They've announced many projects that never got made. They've had announced whole theme parks that never got made. This is a problem that the Disney company has because they get in over their skis when they're trying to sell something or sell the company to investors. But as far as Star Wars specifically, it's because of the lack of accountability that the lead person at the studio has. Kathleen Kennedy is not held accountable for anything, any of her failures, any of her misguided choices. She's not held accountable for losing, 50 to 75% of the audience. I mean, I came across an article today that I'm going to do a video about where it's, it's coming out of the New York Post. Like, I'm sick of Star Wars. They have produced so much terrible Star Wars that they are announcing things to try to see if they can get interest in something. I believe that's the way Kathleen Kennedy is now doing business. And she was supposed to have, and people talked about this week, and I'll talk about it again. And your perspectives are appreciated, but she was supposed to be out of a contract at the end of October. That was supposed to be it. And I think you may have even mentioned it before, Matt, but she obviously got an extension because she's still out announcing things. Is she going to get a win? No, but especially not with Star Wars. Everything that's come out of there has done nothing but convince me Star Wars is dead. And if it doesn't get put on a shelf for the next 10 years, it's never going to amount to anything ever again. But why do they announce things that don't get made? Because they have to announce something. It's one of the most valuable properties they've ever purchased, and they managed to make it one of the least valuable ones they control right now. And they did all of that in record time since the purchase date, with everything since the first film that they came up with, which was, The Force Awakens, going downhill from there in box office receipts and in popularity on their streaming platform, which is a giant mistake. And that's all I have.
Well, I've been saying this for years, but the way that executive contracts work in Hollywood is that they have like a normal length of like 2 to 3 years, just in case the studio wants to fire them. So they come up about every 2 years for renewal. They're auto-renewed. But the reason that there's such short contracts is so that there's flexibility in there for the studio or the person whose contract it is to renegotiate. So like if they're doing really well, they could probably get more money. If they're doing really poorly, like they might get fired. Just depends. But with Kathleen Kennedy's contract, her contract's a 2-year contract and it auto renews every 2 years. So every time somebody says like, oh, her contract's coming up, it's coming to an end, I'm just like, dude, it's just going to renew. Like, this isn't news. It's been happening since, Disney bought the company essentially. But I want to throw this to Tom. Tom, so one of the big things about this article in the Hollywood Reporter is they really talk about how both Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are scrambling to try to get some type of big Star Wars property going, because they want that to be part of their legacy, especially Bob Iger, when they step down from their positions. And it almost feels like a Kamala Harris moment, where it's like, like, if you're so good at this, why haven't you done this already? So I wanted to get your take on it. What have you been hearing about this new Star Wars trilogy and the role that Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are playing in it?
I haven't really been hearing anything really other than what you got. And like I said, it just sounds like a whole bunch of people are talking. And let's be real, this originated probably from Kathleen Kennedy's camp or Lucasfilm's camp. We've almost had confirmation on Simon Kinberg was probably one of the people who also most likely leaked it to the press. I don't even know if we've had an official confirmation yet. The Variety version reads like there was somebody who at least denied something through Lucasfilm, which is more than what the Deadline version says. But then you got Jeff Snyder's version, and then you got Puck's version of it. So they're all like variations on the same thing. I don't know what the hell's going on. The only thing I do know about Simon Kinberg is that he is probably most likely to get something done because he knows how to keep his head down and do exactly what he's told. Fan 4 Stick shows that. The X-Men movies show that. Everything he's done in the past, he will do what the studio wants and then apologize to the fans later and thinks he gets away with it that way. Sure, I appreciate it.
That's
when somebody
really
apologizes
good
for doing something bad, but when you've done the same movie twice and fucked it up, when it's Dark Phoenix, the easiest X-Men story to tell, probably.
Yeah.
That tells me that's alarm bells going off. Now, the Paramount thing, I have heard conflicting reports on the Paramount thing too. We've been told in the press leaks, there's the press situation here, that he still has to do that first. That comes first. That is priority. He signed up for that already back in May. But then again, that was in May before Skydance was a part of this whole deal. So I've been also hearing that his Star Trek deal is dead, which would explain why he's jumping ship to Star Wars. He was also working on one of the other revivals. Was it I can't remember if it was Stargate or Battlestar Galactica, but somebody knows in the chat, remind me. So it's not like this guy doesn't dip his toe in everything. He's a producer on anything that's X-Men related already, so he knows how to do the Amy Pascal bullshit with Kathleen Kennedy. And I've even posited, this is my speculation, that he might be somebody she's bringing in to take over creative control of Star Wars in general. Do not forget, this guy was a consultant on The Force Awakens. He worked on Rebels. Actually, I think he was a co-creator of Rebels.
Yeah, he was.
He even wrote on some Clone Wars episodes and other stuff. So this guy has a history with Star Wars and these people and the people that are involved with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what they're doing here, is they need some creative leader. They probably don't trust Filoni, or Filoni hasn't had enough experience outside of Star Wars. And Kinberg would make sense. I don't like him, but he's somebody who will do exactly what they tell him to, and that's what they want. We all know that's what Kathleen Kennedy wants. And whether or not this is the Rey trilogy or whether or not this isn't the Rey movie, the Rey movie's something different, nobody gives a fuck. That's how bad this stuff is.
Yep.
We've been talking about The Mandalorian on and off. That movie's coming out in a year and a half. Is that even going to break 500 million at the worldwide box office at the end of the day?
There's no hype right now.
There's
no hype about it.
Yeah. In the Park Place article, they quote a reporter who kind of somewhat broke this story. It's this guy Schneider. He does
Jeff Snyder,
Jeff Snyder. He does the In Snyder newsletter.
That's
and he stated, "I think this is Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy and Disney's Bob Iger making one last big Star Wars push before they exit their post next year. And I know Kennedy hasn't formally said anything, but I fully expect her to step down once she has charted a course for the future of the franchise." I disagree with that strongly. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is ever going to step down until she dies, because basically she can just phone it in, right? She can be the figurehead and she can just oversee other
I don't know if
people's
Culture's
stuff.
heard anything, but I've been hearing some rumors that this might be more of an end, you're right, for Bob Iger than anybody, because there's been rumors about some health issues.
Boom.
If you haven't noticed, he's gone a little quieter.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead, Culture.
And add to that the fact that he supported no political candidate in this election. He didn't put $1 into Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, but I think that's because, I mean, it's the same thing with like the newspapers that didn't endorse a candidate. It's because they knew that Trump was going to win, and they don't want to publicly, like, admit it and basically alienate their social elitist friends by coming out and saying that type of thing. So,
well, he's definitely stepping away in many different ways. So I think he's just made peace with the fact. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think, I mean, he might still collect his no-show salary as a consultant at the end of his deal here for running the company, but there's a possibility he may not even do that. Like I said, there's a lot of things happening in the background, as Tom mentions.
Yeah, but I am such a pessimist about Star Wars' future prospects right now.
It's dead.
Well, you'll know how much Bob Iger has to do with this if this gets brought up during the call this week or next week, isn't it? When is it coming up, Culture?
Which thing? I'm sorry. The
Disney.
I think it's this coming week or the following.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's possibly another reason why this was announced. If they highlight all of this, that's why. If Bob doesn't even mention it, then this is Kathleen Kennedy leaking it to the press. There's your answer. They're either together on this or they're apart on this. One of the two.
Yeah. They're trying to pump things up so Brian over there can get excited about his portfolio a little bit.
Oh, I think Trump helped a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah. The next morning, I was able to flip some stuff into the S&P, so I'm happy.
I don't know if I've ever seen a president change that much crap before he's in office.
He's not even in office. It's literally the next morning the stock market rose.
Guys, Dogecoin. Go buy Dogecoin. Do it.
Right I already have. I have 20,000.
Well, you already got Zelensky going. I give up.
Yeah, a week from last Thursday. So next Thursday, the 14th of November, we'll be sitting on our hands, and or on panels and or just watching VR cover this crazy. The level of crazy is going to be insane.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Trump hasn't even taken office. The migrant caravan that was headed toward the U.S. broke up. Was it Yemen?
Want peace?
Yemen threw out all the terrorists.
Iran's economy crashed right away, just done. And Saudi Arabia is kicking Hamas out. Oh yeah, okay. Here's the thing, and this bothers me, Odin. And I mentioned this earlier today. Germany was the center of Europe's economy before the EU was formed, right? And the EU was only supposed to be a trade organization at most, right? Instead, they've turned it into a governmental body that has authority over everything with these elites that are unelected driving that thing. Well, Germany was the center of their economy. They stripped Germany of its energy advantage. They stripped them of their economic advantage. They destroyed what that country had within it, which was this amazing economic engine where their citizenry had little, if no debt. And they managed to undermine all of that in the short period of time that the EU has existed. And they just had their government coalition fall apart. They didn't used to have any of these problems. So not only do they have political stability problems, but they also have financial problems. And they were the center of what was once a great idea.